Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Sprocketeer Masterclass. My name is Grant. Here with me is Marwood from Syncari. Hey, Marwood.
Hi everyone. How's it going, Grant?
It's going pretty good. I'm looking forward to it today.
Me too.
I'm I'm interested because we've already done one of these, for one. For
Yeah.
two, there's much more to say, and this is going to be the first of many. And so, uh, let's get into let's get over there. So before we get into what Marwood's going to talk about, for those of you Sprocketeers listening, welcome, Spinny Spinny. We're doing these master classes really because HubSpot, as it grows, is not only growing what the offerings are, but all of the integrations that are happening. Those integrations are growing as well. And the number of integrations that you can do, the amount of connections you can make is growing. And so oftentimes I have a use case and there might be a technology that's helping or supporting or solving for it. But which one do I install? Which one do I go to and what do I look at? That's what these master classes really are for. So if you're listening right now, live or afterwards, master classes are really to know when to click install on the applications in the HubSpot marketplace. So we have Marwood with us from Syncari. I'm going to go ahead and get this back into a view I can manipulate. From Syncari, like I said before, we did this overview of what Syncari had done back in June, and we're here in September, end of September 2022. And so I want to say hello to Marwood, and Taylor is also with us. Marwood will be doing the speaking. Taylor will be doing the live tweeting over on LinkedIn.
Time flies, doesn't it, Grant? Seems
It
like only
does.
yesterday we did the last presentation.
It seems very recent. And then we got to see
It
all of
does.
you at Inbound.
Ah, that's true. I wasn't invited this year, so hopefully, maybe next year, I'll be able to go too.
Next year, we're going to get Marwood in a cape, and he's going to be.
I have a couple in the closet already. We just need to add to that and really expand on my wardrobe, the cape wardrobe. That is.
You
Sure.
heard it here. It's live. It's recorded.
You heard it here. Next year, all in.
So what Marwood's going to do for us today is walk us through a couple use cases that he's outlined that allows you who has maybe made a web app, maybe you've developed a mobile app, or maybe you're at agency and a couple of your partners are in that realm or industry. The information that's going on and flowing through your web app or mobile app would be critical to have in order to inside HubSpot. And so Marwood's going to show us how getting that data into HubSpot via Syncari, how that works. That's what he's going to be showing us.
Yeah, this is a great use case, Grant. And it's actually a use case that I'm seeing more and more often, especially over the last year. Literally every other call that I'm on, we talk about product usage data and how do we consolidate it? How do we process it? And how do we really get it into systems that can be digested by the end user? So getting this information to HubSpot is just a natural flow from your app, your SaaS application, your database, wherever it may live, right, into something that's easily accessible by the rest of the team.
And
Dashboarding, BI, I mean, the list goes on and on. So
before you get started, you pointed out you slipped by a great point, which is also we can get the data in, but you can transform it. It doesn't have to be how it was, and then after the fact, hopefully you can figure it out. It's Syncari, you can transform it and how it needs to be format-wise.
absolutely, and you're kind of jumping ahead, Grant. You're missing. You're getting a
All right.
preview.
All right.
You're jumping to the punchline. But no, you're absolutely right. The ability to manipulate the data as it flows between your product usage database and source and the end systems that you're going to be connecting it to. So between Snowflake and HubSpot, between Google Sheets and HubSpot, all those connections to be able to actually manipulate that data is really important. Getting raw API calls on a minute by minute basis into HubSpot, cool, awesome, not as useful as most people think. So being able to actually put it in a form that is digestible by upper management, the executive team, or even in customer dashboards, right, to see how they're using that data, is really
Love it.
important.
Well, Marwood, go ahead and share your screen. I'll
Of
pull
course.
mine down, and we'll start to see how this all transforms in with Syncari.
Excellent. Just make sure I'm on time here.
All right, so those of you listening right now, welcome to everyone here in Discord. We're also out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. These links will be available over on Discord. We'll put it in the announcements channel for you to watch back later, the recording of this masterclass. And stay tuned to the end for a special code on getting access to Syncari to do everything that Marwood is showing you and more.
Excellent. All right. Can we see the screen okay, Grant? Just double checking to make sure.
I'm going to see yours, huh? All right, we can see your
talking
screen.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to go over this briefly, and I know we went over this in the last class, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the Syncopy basics, but I do want to highlight how we get started, right? So as a refresher, Syncopy is a data automation platform, a data synchronization platform. It lets you connect to different third-party applications, databases, systems, and actually bring that data into a unified, consolidated data model, right? And then within that data model, you can do things with the data, right? You can do transformations and normalizations like we spoke of earlier, and build out these pipelines or workflows that operate as the data flows between different systems and Syncari, and then back out again to those different systems. So to start with, we're going to connect different systems to Syncari, right? And before I go in deeper, let's talk about the use case that we were discussing a minute ago. The use case of getting this product usage data. So what is product usage data, right? Product usage data is the metrics that you measure when people use your product, right? How many API calls has your account used per day? How many trips has your fleet taken per day, right? Have they logged into your app already? Have they verified their email? All this data is flowing around your application, your database, and the trick here is to get it out of where it's at, get into usable form, like we discussed earlier, and actually get that into HubSpot. So then now it's consumable by the rest of the sales team, the marketing team, the executive team, and whoever else is has access to that data now, and get it socialized to the greater organization. So today we're going to be working with some product usage data, and we aptly pick Uber as a application to model this data after. So to begin with, right, I've set up a Google Sheet. Now you can see it could be Snowflake, it could be a Dynamo database, it could be a S3 bucket. It doesn't really matter where the data is coming from. But to start with, I created a Google Sheet with contacts, right? And some usage information, right? I have the date they used the product, right? In this case, Uber. I have how many rides they took on that day. I have how many friends they referred to the platform, right? And I have how many and I misspelled this, I apologize.
Hey, Marwood, would
Apps, how
you,
many times they open
real
the
quick,
app. Yep.
would you zoom in on that sheet? We could see the top row.
I can definitely try.
That's great. That's great. Perfect.
Apologize
Thanks.
about that.
Yeah.
So this is pretty straightforward, right? We have a list of users, right? We have some information about if they verified their account, how many times they opened their account, how many friends they referred, how many total rides they did in that particular day, right? And some API usage, which is not really relevant, but it's more data that's here, right? And actually there's 100 contacts here. There's 100 random contacts, and I duplicated this 1,000 times. This is a many-to-one table. This is very indicative of a product usage data, right? John is going to use the product today. John's going to use it tomorrow. So every row of data is going to be another entry for John or for a specific account, right? So this is kind of where we start with. Most product usage cases look something like this in their raw form. So I just created this one just for demonstration purposes, right? The first thing I did was I connected that to Syncari, right? I came into my Google test, right? My product usage sheet. I put in the folder ID, right? I authenticated, and it connected directly to Syncari, right? Same thing with HubSpot. HubSpot is an easy authentication. This is an OAuth authentication. You go in, hit authenticate, pops up a window, hit go, you're in, right? There's no other complicated API calls management that you need to do. So we try to make this step as easy as possible. So we got our systems connected, right? Now we got to zoom in like we did before to the Syncari core and look at the data model. Because now we need information from this product usage data, and we need some information about your contacts so we can actually get that to HubSpot contacts, right? So I'm going to do that now. So let's zoom into the Syncari core right here. I click on our Sync Studio. And this is the basic data model that we have. And I'm going to draw our attention to two entities or two objects, the contact object and the product usage data object, right? So let's go to contacts first. This is probably the most important object to start with, right? Because we need something to attach this information to. So when John Smith logs into your platform and does some stuff, his contact information needs to be in Syncari so we can match it up and add that data to the table. And then that table is going to be pushed directly to HubSpot. So as we see here, we have a couple inputs for this table, right? We have HubSpot, obviously. HubSpot's coming in. HubSpot's going out. So right here, we're creating a synchronization between HubSpot and Syncari. Right, so all the information about contacts is flowing into Syncari from HubSpot, and any updates from HubSpot is going to come into Syncari. Also, any updates to Syncari is going to go immediately out to HubSpot. So this creates a bi-directional synchronization with HubSpot specifically, right? I included the Google Sheet just to populate this with data. That's the only reason it's there. Realistically, you could have other applications connecting to this. You can think Jira tickets, Zendesk, right? Other CRMs, databases, etc. But in general, this is going to be your HubSpot core contact connection. Make sense, Grant?
Yeah, that's going to be where basically your information, maybe from your app or mobile app, is coming in from. Right now, we're using it as an Excel, right? This would be your.
Actually, this is where the information from. You're ahead of me. This is where the information from contacts is. So this is your contacts. This is your accounts.
Only.
Your deals, right? Your tickets. This is where they get consolidated into this
that makes sense.
Universal consolidated data model. So this is kind of the base, right? I got 1,000 contacts now, right? So if you come and look at our data studio, you can see I have contacts. And if you look, they just happen to match up with what I had in the Google Sheet, right?
So the first step is getting the contacts in. Contacts settled, contacts set.
Yeah, so a first name, last name, email, basically. So that's the first step. Second step is to bring in this product usage data, right? So this is where the heavy lift comes. It's not much of a heavy lift, but it's still where the actual process takes place. So we're going to go into product usage entity, which is basically a table in Syncari. And what you see here is we have one source. The destination is not there because we're not sending this product usage data anywhere. Right? We're not actually sending it out to the database. It's a read-only ingestion, right? And what we're going to be doing is in this process, we're going to be bringing the data in, processing it, and updating the contact table. Okay, so this is kind of non-linear, right? Which makes this a little complex to explain, but it's actually really unique how we do this. Right, so let's think about this. If we take a snapshot here, right, and I show the flow here, right, the data starts basically at the Google Sheet, right, and then the data is first going to flow to the account verified lookup. So basically, all this node is doing is it's saying, okay, I need to take that account verified field. Let's from the usage data, right? And I need to access that, right? What's the next step, right? The data is going to flow to the next step, the total rides. This is a summation. So every time a row of data, a record comes in, let's say for John Smith, right? We're going to calculate all the rides that John did from product usage. So we're going to look at the product usage and say, okay, let's look at all the rides John did. Let's add them all up. That's what this does, right? We're going to do the same thing for opened apps. We're going to do the same thing for refer a friend, right? And then that data is going to flow to an update record. So what does update record do? And let me zoom into one of these just so it kind of makes sense for everybody. Draft. And you have to think about this linearly as data flows from your usage data, right? One row is going to come in at a time. And what we're going to be asking Syncari to do is, okay, look up the product usage data table, right? Match any accounts that match the email that's coming in. So in this case, let's say john@ibm.com, right? So any field, any rows of data that contain that match, it's going to add up the total rides. So this is a rolling sum, right? Every time a new row of data record comes in for John, we're going to add that to the total. And it's just going to keep accumulating, right? So this is the most basic, we can do counts, we can do standard deviations, depending on what your product usage data looks like. But in this case, we're just going to do a simple summation. Right? So after this is done, we sum up the different fields. We go to an update record. And this is where some people get a little bit confused because you're asking, well, why are we updating a record? And the answer was what I'd spoken about earlier, is this is not a linear process. Right. It is linear, but it's not quite linear. So what this does is it looks up the contact entity or email and find John's record in contact table. And from the contact table, we are actually updating the fields in the contact table, right, that are from the 4 different nodes we just used for our calculations. So we're going to update total rides in the contact table for John, right, with the values from total rides. And we're going to do this for each different value, right?
Marwood, I love this UI. It feels so much like HubSpot, and it just makes sense because we're making those properties that you're referencing. And in Syncari, I'm able to make the matching one, so I know that I'm getting the right data with the right information. Exactly.
And you're able to rename these to whatever you'd like, right? So we keep it flexible. And I think this is a really interesting point that by giving this flexibility is we're actually updating records across tables. Right? That's a really interesting point, right? You can't always update records across different tables. And the only way you can do that is if you have the data from all the different sources consolidated together in one spot, right? Now, what's unique is this data does not flow into the product usage table, right? We're skipping the product usage table, right? This table is getting all the lines of data, but at this update Syncari record step, we're skipping, right? We're jumping to the contact table. We're actually, if I draw it out on the screen here, right? I'm inserting records here. I'm skipping, I'm completely skipping this area, right?
Right.
So this area is not, is not being currently used, right? This
Right,
is
because it's its own source. That's where information is coming from.
That's right. So it's coming from this, which is from the product usage data, right? And then what happens once we update the records in contact? Simple. We push it this way, which then goes to HubSpot, right? So this all happens in pseudo real time. So as the record flows from product usage, we calculate the sums, right? We update the contact record, and in the next sync cycle, so within 30 seconds to a minute, we're pushing that data to update HubSpot. That's what's actually happening here, right? Now that data is actually flowing back in on this side, right? So we can actually delete these things. But that flow is not as important right now. I mean, if we want to talk about deduplication and other aspects, yes, the flow from this side back in is a very important piece. This feedback loop that we're creating, the synchronization is extremely powerful, but we probably want to leave that to maybe to another
We'll do another
class.
deep dive, on the synchronization.
Maybe we do another class in the near future. Kind of plugging ourselves right there, shamelessly, of course. So let's bring that back bring it back full circle, right? We have contacts. We have all the data from HubSpot into contacts, accounts, deals, tickets, right, etc. When we get back to our product usage table, right, the data is flowing in from whatever source, right? I can easily drop in Snowflake, right? Bam. Now Snowflake's connected, right? Now, I can even get data from imported files. Bam. Now I get imported files. I can upload a CSV file. Pretty much that simple, right? All I have to do is set the fields, and that data is going to flow in whenever there's changes. So the data comes in. I do some lookups, right? I do some calculations, and it's giving me errors because I didn't set it up properly. But we're doing our sums, we're doing our counts, we're doing our roll-ups, right? We're manipulating that data to a form we want it in. And now we're pushing that to the proper fields and contacts, which basically is the right fields in HubSpot, because it's a mirror of HubSpot. So this step is actually pushing the data we want directly to HubSpot. And that's the basic flow. And if you look at the data, I can actually show you what it actually looks like, right? Our product usage data is row by row, right? Marwood, Daddy, right? Fenya, they verify their account. They open the app 2 times, right? But there's 1,000 rows of data, right? There's only 100 contacts here. So it's duplicated, 10 times. If we go to our contact data, let's click on that. We can see the same group of people. This is Fenya again. But look, she referred a friend 39 times. So this is the roll-up. This is the consolidation of the data from the product usage data.
That sits on the one contact, because you want to know what one contact has done.
Absolutely. Yep. Because you need the rolled up data, right, to know what this one contact. You need a universal record, right? You want to have a full I don't like saying this, this, Grant. I hate saying this. Hate it, but it's a 360-degree view of your customer, of your contact, right? Or a unified customer view, or a consolidated customer view. It's a catchword, right? But it's kind of true, right? If you're consolidating it from different systems, whether it's HubSpot or HubSpot and other applications, customer service tools, ticketing tools, etc., then you want all that information consolidated in one place. And then Syncari lets you distribute that source of truth back out to whatever systems you want. And in this case, we're going to push it right out to HubSpot so that HubSpot is now your true source of truth. after it's been processed from your product usage data. Now
That makes sense.
that's how Syncari does it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So on
I can
this
go
one,
into some
Marwood,
more detail about other things, but that's the presentation, and that's how Syncari does this in almost every case, right? It's a couple of pipelines. They can be buried in different fields. They can be manipulated more. We can do mathematics on them, right? Divisions, ratios, multiplications, whatever the case may be. I'll stop there. I apologize for talking over you, Grant.
no, you're doing great. The data points themselves, Marwood. Can we talk about some of those as examples for specifically when we were thinking about product-led growth? We're not pretending to be experts on what the data points are that you and your business need to run, and the data points that are going to work, that are going to find you growth. The point here is that you can pull in information. And so we had a few, and I know you went over them. Can we dive deeper into some of them? Was it account verification and rides?
Sure. So we have account verification. So account verified is a Boolean, right? It's a simple switch. It's either you did it or you didn't do it, right? So this is basic information that you're going to get from your app. That's going to live in your product usage data, right? It may not be duplicated like I have it here. This is actually not logical use case for this, but theoretically it can be a string, it can be a true false, a 1 a 0. This is something that would be updated one time and not really updated again, right? Now if that data is coming into Syncari, we're gonna notice that there's no update, and we're gonna not update it, obviously. So that's gonna be kind of a stopper for that raw data. But let's take total rides, right? This is a great example of product usage data. Think of an Uber driver, right? And your Uber driver or your Lyft driver or your ride share driver, right? Maybe makes 20 rides during the day, right? So it's all going to be recorded on their app, and that app's data is going to go somewhere, right? They go into a Snowflake server or an Oracle database or a Redshift database somewhere, right? That information is golden to the executives of the company, right? How many, I can only imagine, somebody in management asking, well, how many average rides do they do in San Francisco, right? Or in Las Vegas, right? How many rides does John do versus Tim, right? Or how many rides does this demographic do?
Yeah.
Right? Or in this demographic.
This is what I love about it, Marwood.
Yeah. So now we can incorporate data enrichment to another class, right?
Right.
But we can pull that data enrichment from third-party providers, think ZoomInfo, Clearbit, Dun & Bradstreet, the list goes on and on. Consolidate that data, enrich it, and now start to score this, right? So now we know how many rides each person does. Let's roll up to how many rides per area, how many rides per a snapshot in time. And then how do we show that to people, right? I mean, in Syncari, and you can do this in any BI tool, but when you start to be able to do charts and graphs of time series data, when you can actually track these changes across time and across regions, across different metrics, that's when it becomes really powerful, right?
Agreed.
So you can create these charts in HubSpot or your BI tool, right? After Syncari already.
I think that's one of the things that is amazing when you have the data coming in through Syncari, and like you said, then you're really just updating with the update you want, because on the front end you're pulling what's true in HubSpot, updating it, and sending it back. So if you're a salesperson right now, or let's stick with sales. If you're a salesperson and you're doing scoring, and you just launched a mobile app, when you're pulling in this user data from the mobile app, it's not just scoring on your website anymore. It's activity on the mobile app. And so that scoring now changes. You could make buckets. You don't have to always pull in. You don't always have to show the raw number. But here we can get the raw number, and you can and you can show what bucket they've fallen into. Have they made it into this scoring range? gold, platinum, what have you.
Sure. It also, and on a technical side of things, I know not everybody thinks about this, but we are also taking some of the load off a production server and a production database. Because what the typical flow would be that data coming in, right? It gets rolled up, it gets queried, it gets processed on the database level, put into fields, and some of that can be offloaded into platforms like Syncari, right? We can do that processing. We're very efficient at these specific types of things, right? I'm not claiming we're a Snowflake or an analytics database, but for these specific types of usage data, that unloading from a production environment directly connected to your app. And we've had this with a couple of our customers so far. They were extremely worried about the load on their database that they were using. And we were effectively able to reduce that significantly just so that they had additional bandwidth to expand, their app further. So there's a lot of things we can do. I'm not even going to get into, reduce API calls and batching and setting the cadence of this stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that's possible once you build the pipelines, right? We can just kind of plug it in any usage data that you want, and it processes it automatically. That's
love that, and that's why digging in. I love where you went with that, because even if there's an existing business with an existing sales team, you launch a mobile app. If your initial thing is launching a mobile app, you could be running all this raw data while your production server, as Marwood said, is focused on the app itself. Syncari would be a great in-between to offload that processing. Elise in the comments just said, well then, great, if you now have these bucket indicators and the raw number, now all of a sudden your marketing team can start to gamify your customers into, oh, you're 3 away, you're 5 away from the next level.
Oh, sure.
Log in.
Absolutely. And it gets even deeper, because once we have the pipeline set up that do stuff, right? Who's to say I can't drop a Slack message right, every time a usage comes in, and I send that usage to a company Slack channel, right?
Right.
I can send a Slack message every time a deal gets issued, right? I can have a sales channel. Wow, we had a new sale, right? So this is really powerful, and to be able to not just update the product usage table, to be able to actually push that to HubSpot is, I think, a game changer, right? To actually connect it and process that data to get it into the sales team's hands, right?
Right.
Get it into marketing's hands, and management, just so that it can be better managed and the company can be run better, right? So the list of applications just is almost endless.
And that's probably the fun part about it, is that, all right, once you have this information, like you're saying, now the fun begins of what to do with it. You'll have it. You'll have the info. What can you now create around this system you've set up where the information is flowing?
Exactly. So before we get too far on time, is there any questions?
That was the
I want to leave a little bit of time. Yeah.
That was the only kind of feedback question at this point. Nothing on the roll-ups yet. Consolidating in one place. Elise, thanks for all of the activity, as always. Your golden data for optimization and targeted experiences. Yes. Maybe that's your phrase instead of the 360, Marwood. Your golden data.
Your golden record.
Your golden record.
Yeah. That's another one I was trying to avoid.
So we talked about account verification. Platinum records. Now you're a record label.
Diamond records. We can go better than gold for sure.
Total rides. You could do, refer to friend and have open app in the last 90 days. So again, like Marwood said, these are examples of data you could pull in, and honestly, what tends to happen, because Syncari can connect the systems, is that you're literally getting back to basic database management. It's like the data structure. Do you want a Boolean? Do you want a date field? Do you want a long form text or short form? Do you want it to be a numeric value? Do you want it to be 5 characters? You start to get into this raw data question of how do you want the data to be formatted, because you can definitely pull it in. And so,
Absolutely. I haven't even gotten to the point that you can do time analysis, right? There's a date field technically associated with each one of these. So you can technically slice it and dice it based on time pieces, months, days, weeks, etc. So the amount of information you can extract from this type of data is incredible.
beyond that, Marwood, are there other kind of product-led growth ideas that we need to cover or show as far as the setup in Syncari, or what then results in HubSpot?
I don't think so. I think this is a fairly good representation. To Synchrony, the data is data, right? I can call the labels anything I want. It's all a number on the back end. So we're fairly agnostic when it comes to the application or the data that you're bringing in. This is applicable to SaaS companies, B2C data. We've had data from medical facilities, right? Visits. We've had API usage. We've seen almost as far down, not quite as detailed as page view tables from a website, but we have had click data and other website related data. Which forms have been accessed more or less.
Right.
All those are valid use cases, and that's not even touching the marketing side of things, right? Which links have been clicked more often. Let's consolidate some of that UTM data and other information. So
Right, the frequency.
it just opens up the doors to whatever you want. But as long as you can represent it, as long as we get access to that data, we're good, right?
Right.
Once we can pull it in, now we can start to manipulate it. Send it back to a database, right? For archiving. Send it to HubSpot, like you said, right? Send out Slack messages, team messages, Google chat messages, emails, right? We have some customers that actually send messages to their customers, right? From Syncari, right? How
Yeah,
about
an
churn
update, a
prevention?
note, a celebration. I know at
Exactly.
Inbound it's very popular to have a written note sent or a little gift once,
Yeah. Oh
reaches a
yeah.
level.
Fantastic use case. Churn propensity, right? We have customers that use tickets, right? They count tickets per account because they know if you have, the more tickets per account per a period of time, the more chance that account's going to churn, right? And they can preventatively
Yeah,
go
right.
in and contact, right, these accounts and contacts and say, what's going on? Why is this working that way?
Ahead of time. Okay, so now we're even
Ahead of
getting
time.
into alerts
Absolutely.
of issues before they become issues, because you've tracked and you've said when you don't log in, you haven't made a task, you haven't logged a call. Now I should flag and
And
ask what's
this is happening in real time,
in
right?
real time.
So
Yes.
as it's happening, you're getting your contact record in HubSpot updated, right? That's kind of crazy, right? Within 5 minutes, somebody uses your app, you're getting that updated information to your sales team immediately, right? Or to your marketing team, or to your customer service team, or whoever's ingesting that information, um, which is huge, right?
Right.
It doesn't always happen that way.
It's not always the case that you get it in the first place.
That's true.
When you do get it, it's maybe the week, more likely the month So you're doing a month in review, and your managers are going back through. And then even then, it's not a conversation about it, it's that happened. And so now you need to do something about it. Where for me, as a manager, it would be, since it's real time, I'm not having to debate that it's happening or not at the end of the month. It has just happened. So now the conversation is moving to how do we resolve? And like you said, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it could be a huge deal. So at least that's what we're seeing. You know, a lot of our customers believe that that data is so valuable, they're putting a lot of resources toward that, right? And sometimes this data is not trivial data. You know, we have customers that have hundreds of millions of rows of data, right? And these things come in, they come in quickly, right? They come
Mm-hmm.
in thousands a minute, stuff like this. And it's really important to the operation of their business and their go-to-market motion, right? To
Right.
understand that data and have it accessible quickly, right? You don't want to go down the wrong path and realize that, you know, a month in that, oops, you know, I'm marketing to the wrong segment, or my segment was messed up to begin with, or why am I activating data here when it should
Uh-huh.
be there, you know, and how many email opens did I receive? You know, let's consolidate that data too, right? Let's get the data back in from your sequencer. Let's get the data back in from you know, from your marketing cloud, and actually close that loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get that feedback back in to actually make actions on it, and adjust your gameplay, you know, mid game to actually make it worthwhile.
All right, if you're a Sprocketeer listening right now and you are manager or you work with a leader in your organization, if the conversation Marwood and I are having right now, you would like to have day to day in your daily syncs or week to week in your weekly syncs, do what Marwood just showed you. Because the conversation that we're having is only enabled by the fact that Marwood has created during this masterclass the data to have the conversation on top of. Do what Marwood just showed us, and these will be your day to day and week to week conversations.
Yeah. And I just make more and more point. Once this is done, once you build this, Grant, it's kind of set it and forget it. It just works, right? You don't have to worry about, you know, down systems. You don't have to worry about API errors. You don't have to worry about, you know, things not happening. You can just build it, test it. Once it works, let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and let us manage the details in between, right? Now your
Mm-hmm.
data is connected. Now it's flowing between system A, system B, and it'll work. Yeah,
Marwood, we did have one question which you just alluded to,
sure.
so it's perfect. Uh, Syncari itself, can you compare, contrast it to HubSpot's Operations Hub and Snowflake? Is it a data warehouse? Is it that functionality,
So
or is it about the flow between? Yeah.
So that's a great question. And the answer is both. So Syncari is manages the integrations between HubSpot and other systems, as a good example. We manage the API calls. We manage any possible errors. We manage that all behind the scenes. So a lot of people call it like the traffic cop to your data. Right? To do that, to actually do that, we need to have a snapshot of your data so we can see what the changes are in between your different systems. So to create this synchronization, a stateful synchronization, and maintain data integrity between systems that weren't technically designed to talk to each other, Syncari needs to have that data store. We call it an operational data store. Unlike Snowflake, which is highly optimized for analytics, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you can do some amazing things with Snowflake, and Syncari is never going to compete with that type of a database. But what we do behind the scenes is we have an operational data store where all your data is stored, and we do things with that data that you'd have to do manually with your other applications like Snowflake and databases. So we're doing ID unification right? We're creating one record in Syncari, and we're linking out to all the different applications that may contain that record. So we're not duplicating that record. We can also manage those duplicates, if there are any, across multiple systems. That's really powerful. I think that's a whole nother 30-40 minute discussion, obviously.
Just the duplicates
But to answer
themselves.
just the duplicates and cleaning up multiple systems containing multiple duplicates, right? But to do this, right, Syncari needs to know what IDs are linked to what IDs. We need to know who's the owner of each account, contact, deal, etc. And to do that, we do have an operational data store in the middle here. So Syncari, to answer the first question, I know it was a little long-winded, manages the integration dynamically and manages the data in an operational data store. So in some cases, we do overlap that functionality from, let's say, a Snowflake. But in other cases, we operate alongside that data store, depending on the specific uses that you may have.
That makes sense, because based on the use case, you're going to need it to either operate in tandem or you're going to need it to be. And so it's
exactly.
It's a when, or it depends.
Yeah. A great example of this is the Snowflake example, right? Let's take PlayStation, right? PlayStation takes gaming data from their PlayStation platforms, right? And it's dumped into Snowflake at a rate of, I can't remember, I think 1.2 terabytes a month, something like that, right? That's usage data, right? That's raw usage data. And it is coming in as a fire hose, not a fire hose, a lake, right? At once, right? Snowflake is uniquely designed to handle that volume of data as a rush of data continuously, right? But what Syncari can then do is we can technically take that usage data and manipulate it, roll it up. So now it's consolidated into something that's usable after it gets to Snowflake. Now it gets consolidated, crunched, and
right.
broken down into the pieces that you actually want to see. You know, that's a good example of how, you know, Syncari and an analytics database, right, and live side by side. And even though they can overlap in a little bit, they technically have different specific use cases.
That makes sense. The technology is different, and thus you're getting a different result.
Exactly.
Marwood, you have again shown us something very useful with Syncari.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. Taylor, on the chat side, thank you for being here, and welcome to Syncari.
Thank you, Grant, and thank all the Sprocketeers on the phone or on the call. It's always a pleasure to come in and chat with you for, I know, a limited amount of time, but
yeah,
every once in a while, I really enjoy it. So thank you.
Those of you watching now and watching after, on the screen, there is a QR code. Feel free to scan it. It's going to go to a 30-day free trial of Syncari, which gives you unlimited access to the tool. And so for 30 days, you will be able to use Syncari. You'll be able to use all of the features. You'll be able to build what Marwood just showed us. And you'll be able to do, if you go back and watch our original masterclass with Marwood back in June, you'll actually be able to do all of the things he showed us there as well. So go ahead and head to syncari.com/sprocketeer-free trial, or you can scan this QR code, and it'll give you a 30-day free trial of Syncari.
Hey, Grant, it's not popping up on the screen, just FYI.
It is on this end. You'll have to watch it afterwards.
There we go.
Sprocketeers, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being in the community, being active. Spinny to those of you who are active enough to spin the flywheel, make your portals work for you. There's so many new integrations and applications being developed. Thanks for sitting through another masterclass. Thank you again, Marwood and Taylor, to all the team at Syncari, Trish, Elise, Jack, got us going. We'll see you over
Thank you,
on the
Grant.
Discord.
Excellent. Take care,
Take care.
everyone.